Hey, it's Mike over at fishyourassoff.com, and today what we're talking about are the best lures for catching cobia, best baits and lures for cobia fishing. Let's call it that. So cobia are one of those fish that people go bonkers over when they're in town. Now some places are always in town, they're just not shallow and easy to get to. They're deep in offshore wrecks and rock piles and reefs and things like that. But sometimes in the year, they come in shallow, so they can even be inshore or near shore, where you can catch them off the beach or, just a little ways out. Not necessarily offshore too far, but you can catch them out there too. So in my area of the Treasure Coast, it's really about Valentine's Day. They move in, and they're usually gone. In numbers, in decent numbers. They're usually gone by about May. So basically February, March, and April, but then they're moving as the water gets hot because they're very water temperature specific. They like water temperatures, basically 68 to about 72 degrees, give or take a degree or two on either side, and they're going to move either north to south to get those temperatures or shallow to deep to get those temperatures. But they're a real hard fighting fish. They're very good to eat, and they're kind of fun because they're a decent sized fish. There might be a 90-pound cobia that you can sight fish. That's a fun thing to do. So when they're inshore, say the intercoastal waterway or in the bays and anything like that, a lot of times you can find them on the backs of manatees. They're following the manatees, and I think they're basically just waiting for the manatee as it's pulling up grass to scare shrimp and pinfish and little crabs and stuff, and the cobia eat it. It might even be for protection, so they might have something big where they can hide behind. I don't really know the answer, but the fact of the matter is they really like to follow big things. So I've seen them on spotted eagle rays and cownose rays as they're getting clams and stuff. You can see them inshore like that. Offshore, a lot of times they'll be following bull sharks for whatever reason, because bull sharks eat the heck out of them when you get them on a line, and manta rays. So they'll follow the big manta rays. So that's one of your tells when you're out there cruising around looking for them. You're just looking for a big something. Oh, what is that? Is that a manta ray? And you got to get up to it cautiously and start pitching your baits and lures to it to see if there's any cobia on it. It might be a dozen cobia following one big manatee. So if you don't spook the manatee, you can catch a lot of cobia on that. But what we're going to talk about is the lures and the best baits catching these things, because they are very wide ranging. You can catch them all the way over Texas, in the Gulf, all the way around the tip of Florida, and I think up as high as about Virginia. So again, based on water temperature and what they're doing, but in the spring and early summer, they're spawning, so they come in shallow and they're in big groups. You're not just getting onesies and twosies. You might catch a dozen of them. So, that's really what you're looking for. But let's go ahead and cover the best lures first of all. If you ask 10 cobia fishermen what the best lure is, probably 8 out of 10 of them are going to say jigs. Jigs of some sort. Bucktail jig, whatever kind of jig. Now, what I use is I pour my own jigs that I'm catching snook with. So these are your basic flare hawk jigs. We have this part is a little longer, so it has a tail because that catches them better for some reason. So these are something that I take just like this, and then all I do is I modify them a little bit. So here's one that's been really beaten up, this guy. But all I basically did was I cut the tail off on this one, and then I add this curly tail to it. That's an 8-inch curly tail that I added to it, right? So there you go. There's one of them. So you're taking just your basic snook rig. I'm beat up too. Taking your basic snook rig, and you're just adding a curly tail to it. That's an 8-inch curly tail on that flare hawk snook jig. Here's the ones that I use. It's a company called H&H Lures, and they're out of Louisiana. I'm not sponsored by H&H Lures in Louisiana. But what I like about them is, first of all, you get 5 of them for $3.99 or something like that, and that's all right. Under $1 a piece is fine. But what I like about their plastic is it's super hard and tough. It's like really tough plastic. You know, a lot of these things, you know, when you catch one fish, it's torn up, you know, there's a buck, you know, that's gone basically. So yeah, it's really one of those things where I want a harder plastic. You know, when the fish bites, it's still going to hold it because it's squishy. It feels more normal. But you know, that's really what you're talking about here. So you're just taking your basic jig. Again, this is one I made, but any jig like this, right? And you can just add a tail straight to it if you want. Because another kind of lure that works really well here. Another lure that works really well is anything that looks like an eel. So you just take your basic jig head like this, and then you add, this is an 8-inch curly tail. You add your 8-inch curly tail and you got an eel. Now there are lures that are actually eels that are specifically for cobia fishing. I know, I don't have anything to show you because I don't use them, I do that. But a lot of people will just use the magnum sized bass fishing worms. These are 7.5-inch purple worms, but you know, the 12-inch, the 10-inch worms, you know, are usually a little thicker in profile, and they'll just take a jig head and just add a bass worm to it with the curly tail. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but there are specifically eel lures that you can catch cobia with too. Also, remember, they're fish eaters, right? They eat everything. I know one captain one time, I'm in a fishing club here, and he came in to talk to us, and he caught a cobia, and when he cleaned it, it had a dozen baby sea turtles in it. So they eat just about anything. But here's your basic lip plug. It doesn't matter. Just doesn't matter. Here's one. I don't even know what brand that is. Here's another. I know what this one is. This is the Bomber. It's a great snook lure, but you can use this catch cobia too, right here. So these are things you have to have ready for you. So say you're out there and you're fishing for snapper or grouper, and you're on a wreck, reef, rock pile, whatever it is, and cobia are very curious. So for whatever reason, you know, you're catching these fish, and all of a sudden there's a cobia by their boat. Well, they might only be there for a second. So you need to have one of your rod and reel setups specifically ready to either pitch a live bait to a cobia real quick, or pitch your jig, eel, whatever lure at them real quick, because you know, sometimes they're there, they check you out, and then boom, they're gone again. But anything works. Any sort of soft plastic like a jerk bait like this. These are 5.5-inch jerk baits, you know, with a jig head. Any sort of swim baits. You know, this is only a 3-inch paddle tail swim bait right here, but you know, 5-inch would be better. I just didn't have any to show you. You know, something like this, rigged with a jig. Just anything you can get out there and get that fish to you. So those are the basic lures that most people are going to use, but jigs are really what everyone uses. Just a jig with a curly tail on it, whatever jig, doesn't matter. I mean, some of them, they have them set up where they look like an octopus or a squid, because they'll eat squid and stuff like that too. But just think jig with curly tail, and you got yourself a cobia rig. So you can just go take any of your jigs, add a curly tail to it, and all of a sudden you got a cobia jig. Okay, let's talk about the live baits, the actual live creatures that they eat. Well, it's basically everything. You know, when they're inshore, they might be eating ghost shrimp and crabs. You can find calico crabs and blue crabs and shrimp, mantis shrimp, whatever, right? All these different shrimp. So you can tell they're bottom feeders for a lot of the time. But they'll actually, you know, during the spawn, when they're in the higher parts of the water column, they're eating all the other things that are in the higher parts of the water column. They're feeding on squid, like I said, baby sea turtles, whatever fish, anything they can scrounge that are in upper layers of the water column. So eels, you know, if you want to go to the store and get some eels. I've never used eels, obviously. Crabs, pinfish, shrimp, anything like that. And there's different ways to fish them. So say they're down deep on a wreck, well, a dropper rig is what most people are going to use. So you have a whatever ounce weight that you're dropping down there. And here's where your live bait is. It's the same rig you'd use for catching snapper or grouper on a reef or rock pile or wreck too. You stick it down there, you catch the fish, reel it up. Now the problem we're having, and I assume it's statewide, is sharks have really figured out that boats mean easy meals. So the good old days of, oh hey, I got a cobia, let's fight him for 10-15 minutes are over. If you fight that cobia for 10 or 15 minutes, you aren't going to have a cobia there. Some bull shark or some sandbar shark is going to eat that cobia. It's just as simple as that. There are sharks on every reef and rock pile and wreck or whatever. It's either that or a Goliath grouper is going to take your cobia. So you kind of got to go bigger. So say you would normally fish for a cobia with say a 5500 series reel. Well, you might want a 6500 or 7500 series reel, and instead of fishing with a 30 or 40 pound braid, you might want to go 50 or 80 pound braid. I mean, it kind of sucks because it takes the fun out of it, but if you actually want to catch the cobia and not feed it to a shark, you kind of got to beef up your tackle, or you're not going to get. You're just not going to get them. I mean, they might take every other one, or even all of them. There's some people that will hook 3 cobia, and sharks get all 3 of their cobia. So keep that in mind too when you're fishing for these. You might want to beef up your tackle a little bit just to get them up there to the surface. All right, so when they're down deep, you can do that with a dropper, some sort of dropper loop system like that, or just have an egg sinker on there, just regular old knocker rig. But whatever, however you fish on reefs, that's how you fish on reefs. So that's your choice. Do whatever you want. When they're shallow, like on the upper part of the water column, that's when you want to have something that you're going to free line to them. So you're going to pitch your live whatever, atom, crab, whatever. If you can't get it to them, right, just with a free line, well, then you can add a jig to them. So say, for instance, that right there is, I don't know, let's say it's a big menhaden, right, or threadfin herring, whatever it is. All right, say that's what that is. You're just going to hook the jig up through their pallet, right? Pitch that out there, and there's a manatee. The cobia sees it, leaves the manatee, follows your bait down, eats your bait. Okay, so that's just a good way to get them when they're just a little further out and you're not going to be able to cast to them with just your live bait. So just add a jig. Same with shrimp. The premium shrimp, those big, shrimp cocktail shrimp that you would use for snook or something like that are great baits for cobia, for sight fishing them. So you came, you saw, hey, there's a couple cobia on the back of this whatever, sea turtle, whatever it is. Take your shrimp, pinch the tail, hook the jig up through its back like that, pitch it over there. Pinching the tail does a few things. Makes it cast a heck of a lot better and adds a lot more scent in the water for the cobia to be attracted to. Get that in front of the cobia, whichever way they're heading. They'll follow it down and they're going to eat your bait, whatever you pitched at them. So I think that's about it as far as these different baits and lures. They eat just about anything, A lot of these fish are like that too. They eat anything. Some are pretty specific, You think pompano, you think sand fleas, shrimp, crabs, things like that. But when it comes to cobia, they eat everything. They eat everything from baby sea turtles to eels to fish, shrimp, and crabs. Squid, all that kind of stuff. But there's something you definitely want to target because they're one of the better fighting fish. Over in Texas, they call them, I think, a ling. A lot of people call them brown clowns around here for some reason. I call them cobia. But, they're definitely worth targeting because when they come around, you can sight fish them. They're a big fish a lot of times. Might average 30, 40, 50 pounds. When they're inshore, which is how I fish, I'm a kayak fishing guide. You can find them around the buoys, right near the inlets and such. There might be down on the rope. Any kind of structure that you can find inshore during that season when they're actually inshore is a great place to look for them. Just some big brown fish that's by that is worth pitching any of these things to try to pick them up. Any of those things to try to pick them up because when they're there. And like I said, they're excellent fighters. When you catch them inshore, you're much less apt to lose them to a shark too. So you can downsize all of your fishing gear when you're targeting them. When you're offshore, I'm telling you, I mean, those sharks are just ridiculous, and grouper are ridiculous these days. You know, I don't know what we got to do, but they take everything. I don't care if you're snapper, grouper, whatever fisherman, cobia. Those sharks are taking a lot of your stuff. When you have to reel something up 100 feet, it's just too much area in the water to cover, and those sharks are on them. So you got to get that fish up if you want to put it in your ice box. That's a fact. But you can learn more of this information right on our website. It's www.fishyourassoff.com. Teach you the baits, lures, where to target them, how to target them, best bait and tackle, best tackle, all the setups, whatever you want to know. It's all right there. But I think that's it for today. So until next time, we'll see you then. All right. Bye-bye.